Hey everyone, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More. Welcome to another one of my real estate investing videos. Glad to have you as an audience. Today I'm going to talk about the basics of buying a house. So I talk a lot about real estate investing, flipping, rental properties, but I haven't really talked about the basics of what goes through inspections, appraisals, talking to a lender, all the things that go into really the basics of buying a house. So I'm going to talk about that here shortly. I haven't done any videos for a while as far as instructional videos. I've been mostly focusing on my before and after videos. So I've got 16 flips going right now. If you're interested, I try and take before and after videos and some in progress videos of every single one of my flips. And you can find those on my YouTube channel. I've got a dedicated playlist just for those. And I also have another rental property under contract. So there'll be rental property number 17. I haven't bought any rentals for quite a while. This is a commercial place. So I'll definitely have more information on that when I purchase it. And you'll find out much more on investformore.com, my blog, which talks about my rentals, investing, buying, selling houses, being an agent, all of that. So let's get on to this video. There's a lot of people who buy houses, a lot of people who sell houses, and many of them rely strictly on a real estate agent, a lender, maybe even an attorney to walk them through the process and tell them how to do everything. They don't really have the knowledge about how the process works. They don't know how to get a good deal. They don't know really how to find financing. They just let someone else do it. And many times that works out okay. You can get away with it. But if you know a few things about buying a house, about how the process works, it can make it so much easier. You can make a much better financial decision, get a much better house, and just improve your overall quality of life. I mean, buying a house is the most expensive thing most people will ever purchase. So you should take your time to learn about it, learn the process, figure out the best way to do it, because it is a big deal. A lot of people take it lightly. They just figure everyone should buy a house. That's what you should do. Look at houses for a few weeks, put an offer on one, hopefully everything goes smooth, and then move in. But if you really take your time to figure out the best process to do it, you can get an amazing deal. You can really boost yourself financially and buy a better house for your family. So the first thing you should do before buying a house is talk to a lender. Even before you start looking at houses, you need to talk to a lender. And finding a lender, it's not always easy, but a real estate agent can usually help you talk to a lender, find a lender in your area. And as a buyer, there's really no reason not to use a real estate agent, because real estate agents are typically paid by the seller. So when a seller puts their house up for sale, most of the time they will pay the real estate commission for the listing agent who represents the seller and the buyer's agent who helps the buyer find a house. So the buyer doesn't have to pay their agent. Most agents only get paid when they close on a deal, when the house sells. So you can have your agent show you 50 houses. If you never buy one, most likely you won't owe them any money, and they won't get paid either, which is not always great. But it really makes it easy to decide if you want to use a realtor or not, or a real estate agent as a buyer, because it doesn't cost you anything. So take your time finding that real estate agent. Find one you trust, who has some experience, hopefully, who knows your market, and they can usually help you find a lender. A lender is very important. They can make or break a deal on a house. I've seen many deals fall apart because of bad lenders who weren't motivated, didn't do things in a timely manner, or just did not know what they're doing. So just because they work for a big bank does not mean they're going to be a great lender. Many times the national online lenders do not do a very good job. I like to use local lenders who I've worked with many times before in the past as an agent, because I know they'll do a good job. So experienced real estate agents in your area usually have a good idea of what lenders are good, what are bad, who to stay away from, and they can give you some recommendations on who to talk to. They can also let you know if you happen to choose a lender yourself, if they've had any good or bad experiences with them in the past. It seems like any lender will get a loan done and a deal done, but that's really not true. There's many things you have to do as far as appraisals, getting the loan through underwriting, picking the right loan, if the house needs work, down payments, all types of things that go into getting a loan, and you really need to find a really awesome lender. So I'm I'm going to be talking about all this in an upcoming book I'm writing as well, but I also have tons of information on lenders, agents, all of this on my blog, investformore.com. So if you want more information, more details on any of this, like finding a lender, finding an agent, check out my site. It'll have much more information on all of this. So when you first talk to a lender, they're going to do a pre-qualification. And that means they'll look at your credit score, you'll tell them how much money you make, what kind of debts you have, if you have any car loans, things like that. And they'll get an idea of how much house you can afford, or if you can qualify for a house. If your credit's too bad, if you've got too much debt, if you've had any recent bankruptcies, foreclosures, or judgments against you, you might not be able to get a loan. So I know a lot of people are scared to go talk to a lender because they know they might have an issue with their credit or a judgment. But it's really important you talk to them first, because a lender can tell you exactly how to fix those items and the fastest way to fix them. If your credit's a little short, they can tell you what to do first to make sure that credit comes up the fastest. You don't have to go to a credit repair agency. You don't have to worry about not talking to a lender and hope it just gets better on its own. The lender will help you get it fixed the fastest. So talk to them as soon as you can, and they can give you a plan to fix things, what to pay off, what not to pay off, what you have to do. You also most likely have to be at your current job for at least 2 years, or at least in a similar job for the past 2 years to qualify for most loans. So like if you're a banker and you quit one job, but you got another job 2 months ago with another bank, you're probably going to be fine because you're in the same line of work. But if you're a lawyer, you quit and become a real estate agent, the banks might want to see you be an agent for 2 years before they'll give you a loan because you switched job fields. So that's something to think about as well. Again, talk to a lender even if you switch jobs. They can tell you for sure if that's going to be an issue or not. So the lender will tell you how much you can afford to buy if you do qualify for a loan. Maybe they'll say you can get a $200,000 loan, a $150,000 loan, $500,000 loan. And what that is the most you can qualify for based on their guidelines, what they think you can safely pay the loan back. And I love to tell people as an agent, as an investor, try not to spend the most you can, because it makes it very tough to save money. If you ever want to buy investment properties, it makes it very tough to ever do that in the future. Do your best not to max out the most you can spend on a house. The lenders are not thinking, they're not giving you a number where you can save money, do a bunch of other things. They just want to make sure you'll pay back the loan. So we call it being house poor in the industry, where someone spends all their money on their house and they have nothing left over for saving, investing, having fun. So really try not to spend that most you can. Come up with that figure yourself on what you think you're comfortable with spending. Don't just rely on the lender to tell you how much house you can afford. Once you get that pre-qualification number, then you'll kind of know what ballpark you're in to look at houses. And this is why it's good to talk to a lender before you start looking at houses, because if you look at houses first, you might be looking at $400,000 houses and then come to find out, well, you can only qualify for a $200,000 house. And that can make the process tough, going from this high expectation, dropping it way down. And a lot of times it does not work out well for the buyer when they do that. Especially if you can't qualify for a loan and then you wasted all this time looking at houses, wasted a real estate agent's time. You want to make sure you talk to a lender first, can get qualified. All right, so once you're qualified, again, you'll have your real estate agent. They can pull up houses for you, show you houses. The agent has access to MLS, which is a multiple listing service. And that's where most houses are listed for sale. Many of those houses are also listed on Zillow, Realtor.com, a bunch of other sites. But those sites aren't as accurate or updated as much as the MLS system. Many of the houses you see on Zillow are already under contract. Someone else is already buying them and not available. Many of those houses, the price changes aren't updated quickly. New listings aren't updated quickly. And not every single house is on those sites either. Some MLS systems, some real estate offices can choose not to show their listings on Zillow or the online services. So you're not seeing everything on those sites. And that's why it's really important to use an agent, because they can see all the listings, all the houses for sale, see price changes quicker, see new listings quicker, and they won't be giving you a bunch of houses that are under contract, which is what Zillow and those other sites do all the time. So that agent can help you. You can still look on there yourself, try and find properties, send them to your agent, but they can confirm if they're still available or not. Once you find those houses, Obviously, you go look at them with your agent, view them. I suggest really looking at a lot of properties. Don't just look at one or two. Get an idea of what's available in your neighborhoods and your towns. Try to figure out what prices are. Don't just rely on your agent to tell you if it's a good deal or not. The more houses you see, the more you'll get an understanding of what prices should be, what houses are worth. And if you can get a good deal on a house, it makes such a huge advantage in your life. And real estate is really unique in that there can be a house that's worth $150,000, and maybe the seller's really motivated to sell. Maybe it needs a little bit of work. Maybe the other agent mispriced the home, and you can buy it for $130,000. There's not many investments out there where you can buy a house for $20,000 less than it's worth right now. You don't have to wait 5 years for it to go up in value. You can get a good deal on a house as soon as you buy it if you take your time, if you do the research to figure out how to do that. Again, I have a lot more information on that on my site in my book coming up here. But an agent should be able to help you with that, tell you if it's a good deal, tell you what values are. If they can't tell you what houses are worth, what the values are, I would question how good your agent is and if you should keep using them. That is one of the most important things an agent can do and should be one of their strongest traits. Once you find that house you want to buy, what you'll do is typically write an offer on the property. The agent will draw up a contract, put all the information in, purchase price, earnest money, loan amount, all of that. When you're buying a house as an owner-occupant, you can usually put from 0 with a VA loan if you're a veteran or been in the military to 5% down or less, even 3% down with conventional loans. If you're an investor, you're probably going to have to put at least 20% down or more. And how that's classified is an investor or owner-occupant has to live in the home at least 50% of the time for at least 1 year. That's what technically an owner-occupant is. It is considered fraud for an investor to pretend to be an owner-occupant, so I would never suggest doing that. Earnest money is what you would put down as a deposit when you make an offer on a house. So almost every house will require a certain amount of earnest money. Typically, in my area, it's about 1% of the purchase price. I'm in Colorado. So if you're buying a $100,000 house, you need about $1,000 earnest money. You write a check, you give that to your agent, and then the title company will hold that earnest money. They don't give it to the seller, they don't give it to the other agent, they hold it in escrow until the property closes or that earnest money is released to one party. Along with that earnest money, you'll have some other dates and inspections, appraisals that go along with your contract. So most people will want to do an inspection. That's when they look at the house, have a professional inspector, a contractor, someone check out the plumbing, heating, roof, foundation, make sure it's in decent shape. Now, if it's written into your contract, you have an inspection period, and for some reason you cancel your contract, you get the earnest money back. The buyer gets their earnest money back. They don't lose that money. You have a certain amount of time to get your loan done. So maybe you have 30 or 40 days to get the loan completed. If the lender comes back and says you don't qualify for this loan for some reason or something changes in your financial situation, you don't qualify for the loan, as long as you tell the seller before your dates expire, you get your earnest money back as well. So that deposit is not non-refundable. Most people, I'd say 95% of the time, when a buyer cancels a contract, they get that earnest money back. The seller does not get it. But it still shows kind of a good faith that the buyer is willing to put up some money. Now, when I'm buying investment properties, fix and flips, or rentals, oftentimes I'll waive all my inspections and contingency dates like loan approval, all that, to give the seller a better reason to accept my offer because they know if I do cancel, they will get my earnest money. But most people will just have those dates, protect themselves, and put up earnest money for when the contract goes through. Another thing to think about is your lender will require an appraisal when you get a loan with them. So an appraisal is when a licensed appraiser inspects the home, checks it out for any major damage, and comes up with a value. So their job is to make sure the house is worth at least as much as your contract price, because the lender is going to be giving you a loan based on that contract price. And if the home isn't worth that, they don't want to lend on it. They will lend on the appraised value, what the appraiser says it's worth, not what you're buying it for. So we have a lot of appraisal problems with rising prices. Homes are going up really high in Colorado. And if the appraisal isn't coming as high as it should, the seller may have to lower the price, the buyer may have to bring more cash to closing, or the deal could fall apart. So it's very important to work with your agent, make sure they are being proactive to get the appraisal done quickly. Your lender needs to order an appraisal right away. That's one of the biggest delays we see in closings, was when the appraiser is not sent to go out to the house for a couple of weeks, and it takes a while to get an appraisal done right now. It's at least 3 weeks in Colorado. Some other places across the country it can take over a month to get the appraisal done. Some places it takes a week. So the sooner your lender can get the appraisal ordered, the better. That's one reason to use a really good lender, is for that appraisal. And your agent, in most cases, can send that appraiser comparable sold properties, really help the appraiser come in at value so you don't have a problem with that if your agent's proactive. So you do your inspection, that goes okay. You do your appraisal, that goes okay. Then you can close on the house, and closing means you buy it. So you can't get your loan completed until the appraisal comes in. There's no repairs required. That's another thing to think about, is if there's major problems with the house, like the heating, the roof, even broken windows, the lender may not want a loan on that house. The appraiser might call out repairs. They have to be fixed before closing by the seller. Sometimes maybe the buyer can pay for part of it. But if you're buying houses that need a lot of work, make sure your lender knows that and they're okay with the work needed, or you figure out some other way to get that work done before closing, because most lenders do not like to lend on houses that need a ton of repairs. All right, but you get to closing. Typically it takes about 45 days when you're getting a loan from the time you make an offer on a house that's accepted to the time you close on it. And that time, gives you time for the inspections, gives you time for the appraisal, time for the loan to go through, and you'll go to closing. Maybe that's the point you'll bring the rest of the cash that's needed for the down payment, closing costs on your loan. So something else to consider is maybe you pay 3% for a down payment on a house. So on a $100,000 house, that's $3,000. That's not the only thing you're going to have to bring for money. There are also loan closing costs. So lender will have an origination fee. You'll have to pay for the appraisal. You'll have to pay for prorated taxes, property taxes on the house. You'll have to pay for prorated homeowners insurance on the house. There's a number of fees that go into it that can be 2 or 3% of the price of the home. So on that $100,000 house, you might pay another $3,000 in closing costs. Now, you can ask the seller to help pay for those closing costs, but that reduces the amount of money the seller's getting. So if they're in a really hot market, that can make it tougher to get deals, but it's still possible. So you will have to bring the rest of the money at closing, certified funds. You can't write a personal check. You can't buy that house until they know they've got all their money. The lender will send money to the title company. Once they get all the money, everybody signs all the documents. You get the property. Most of the time you'll get possession right there. You'll get the keys, and you can start moving into the house. So that's kind of the basic process of how buying a house works. Talking to a lender is extremely important. One of the first things you should do. Finding a really good agent is extremely important. One of the first things you should do as well, especially if you don't have a lender, that agent can help you find a lender. Looking at quite a few houses is important. Really getting an idea of what values are to make sure you're not paying too much for a house. And also, if you can, take the time to try and find a really good deal. It will really, really make your life better. In the future, if you want to take money out of that house, maybe refinance it, pay off debt, or invest it, if you get a really good deal when you first buy the house, it makes it much easier to refinance the home later and pull cash out and use that money for other things. So the better deal you get, the more money you'll be able to take out in the future. It's always nice when prices go up. Most of the time house prices do go up, but if you can build an equity right in the beginning, that's even better. So you'll do the inspection, appraisal. Most of those are handled by your agent. Your agent should be able to help you get a really good inspector as well. Try not to, beat up houses too much. Any house that's not brand new is going to have some problems. Any older houses are probably going to have code violations because the codes change over time, and older houses are grandfathered in. So if you get an inspection with code violations and just a ton of things wrong with it, don't freak out. Don't automatically cancel your contract. I always suggest people talk to their agent about the issues. Talk to professionals if there's, old pipes. Talk to a plumber. If the heating system has problems, talk to an HVAC company. If the roof has problems, send a roofer out there. Get those things checked out to see how serious the problem is. don't just cancel the contract because you see a lot of problems. Figure out how bad they are. And many times you can ask the seller to fix some of them. Hey, the roof is bad. You've got to fix the roof. I probably can't get a loan anyway with a bad roof, so would you be willing to fix it? You can often ask for a price reduction if there's a lot of problems too. So it's not the end of the world if you get a horrible inspection. Sometimes you get those items fixed, maybe get a price reduction and still get the deal done. Again, on the appraisal, if that comes in low, it can be a problem, but a lot of times you can work through that with the seller lowering the price. Maybe the buyer can bring a little more money and get the deal done. So getting to closing, sounds like a complicated process, but again, the agent's there to help out, the lender's there to help out. But the more you can know about the process, the more you can, figure out the best house for you, the smoother and better the whole transaction will go. All right. Thank you very much for watching. It's tough to fit in all the information on buying a house in, a 20-minute video. But again, I have much more information on investformore.com. I have a lot of other videos as well on finding a great deal, on getting loans. So I hope you check those out, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.